EVs are trash. They're junk. They're not exciting. They've got no sound. They're not even that green for the environment. You can't recycle any of it anyway. Nothing but glorified milk floats. These are just some of the things that we see and hear online every day. And some of those might even be true. I guess it depends on your perspective. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's not all even green. But what we tried to do when we started this journey was show another viewpoint, show that there was potential in second life use, and that there was an option for when your EV vehicles become too tired for the road. And what we did was show that there is possibilities to utilize this technology in a different way. So let's go take a look. Here we are again. A few modules down there. Little box to open here. And in this one, we're going to be showing you what we actually get up to with the battery cells that we recovered from the MG battery.
Okay.
So, in full disclosure, this is not the first one of these we built.
No.
We've got a few which we'll show you a bit later, but just wanted to show you from the start sort of what we're doing.
This is basically what we received as a do-it-yourself box.
So this box obviously designed for this application in that it's pre-designed with a bunch of cutouts for a screen and some voltage connectors and then some comms connectors and a few LED holes for alarms and things like that you can just see. Now, clearly this is built to a design, which is an off-the-shelf design. We're going to modify this slightly because we do it a little bit different for what we're doing. And we're going to make a separate front plate and then modify the insides as well.
So
they've got neat little stacking feet, so the feet you can put extra boxes on top, and again we'll show you that a bit later. I think we've got a stack of 4 already, haven't we?
I think we're up to 6 now.
6, okay, there we go.
Right.
Now as you can see, this is an empty box. It's a reasonable weight, and it gets quite fruity once the batteries are inside.
A lot heavier as we put more in it. And again, when they come, they put these silver screws in just as temporaries to hold the thing. So. This normally comes with a mounting for the particular BMS that you're going to do, which you would mount on here and put the various plugs through. So really for the do-it-yourself market, you buy a BMS and then you buy the battery cells.
Just screw the board to the back here.
That's it, yeah. But for us, we're not using any of that. We just literally want the box.
That bit goes in the bin.
Yep, that's rubbish. The lid we will use later.
Right, and then we can see all of the mounting rails that come as standard with this box layout. Now again, for what we're going to do, we're going to take most of this, if not all of this, out and modify it, not use some of it because of the shape of the batteries that we're putting in, and we've done our own design. But what this gives you is a really handy, ready to go off the shelf system that if you've got packs that fit into it or batteries that fit into it, you've got all these lovely mounting positions to locate things and secure things. But all of that is going to come out for us.
I think this box, to get it to the UK, I bought 8 of them, and I think they worked out about £150 each by the time I got them to the UK. So this is really...
So that's shipping, duties and everything.
Shipping's everything,
For 150 quid, it's not bad, is it?
But again, it is the bare bones box. So I got a reasonable deal from the young lady at this company. We'll put those details on the video. So for what we're doing, yeah, they go in the bin as well.
More scrap.
More scrap.
They come with these nice solid handholds as well. They're sort of sprung loaded, so you can lift them out. Gives you a good hold.
And the final piece, which guess what? We scrap.
So we've done 2 variants of these boxes so far. In the first one, we used the original MG battery modules, which are the ones that came out of your car.
This is what we're doing now, yeah.
Yeah. And then we've built some using the larger modules out of the second battery that we took apart in the last video.
Yeah, that's the 74 kilowatt battery. And what they give you a much larger block. So where that's a 6S block, the other battery pack is a 16S. And again, they're lithium ion batteries, they're not lithium phosphate.
Yeah.
So these are higher voltage, these will go up to 4.2 volts.
Per cell.
Per cell.
Yeah.
For our application, we're going to change these to make it a 14S battery. That is solely because the inverters I've got won't like working above about 58.5 volts. So I've got to make it work in the range that my inverters will work on.
Okay, so what we're going to end up then in here in this box is essentially a bank of 2 individual batteries inside the one box, isn't it?
Yeah, this will be a 10 kilowatt box, 10 kilowatt hour box in storage capacity. Inside there will be 2 5 kilowatt hour battery modules, and there'll be 2 BMSs. So basically this is 2 batteries in one box, purely just to use all the space.
So, as if by magic, some bits that we prepared earlier, because we said we're going to be making a slightly bespoke installation in this box.
Okay, basically the layout is going to be, if you imagine this is the battery, this is an aluminium base plate made for these batteries.
So these modules just have a very soft skin on the bottom, which is typically what...
You can see they are the separate cells.
So they're your individual cells. There's 6 of those in each bank, in each module.
Yeah.
And they're just covered in this tape, because ordinarily in the MG battery, they go down onto the thermal pad.
Thermal heatsink, yeah.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've made a nice aluminium plate, which will go on.
And that will act as a support, but also as a heat
We'll also
sink.
put the old thermal pad back in.
So we've, so yeah, if you remember from the previous video, I'll try and find a little snippet to put in. But we recovered the thermal pad material out of the MG battery pack, and we'll place that back underneath those modules and in between these heatsink plates here to then give us the battery cooling surface area that we need, because we're not going to be driving these too hard.
Just some little bobbins we turned up very quick. And these...
And there are our spaces.
Just go under spaces to mount these plates.
Right,
Okay.
and then yeah, so let's just let's have a look at this. So we talked about the front plate. So obviously we showed you earlier, we've taken away the factory front plate, and that's essentially going in the bin, which is that one on the left there. So you can see we've got single screen, a few connections for the high voltage and some comms and things. Now, because we're going to be making essentially 2 battery banks within this one box, we needed to allow for
2 screens, okay, battery 1, battery 2, a common set of connections, because they'll both go to a common set for positive in, positive going out to the next battery, negative in, negative going out to the next battery, 2 sets of comms, and then we've also allowed for 2 circuit breakers, which sometimes the manufacturers put on boxes, but most of them don't, so we've allowed for 2 DC circuit breakers, 1 for each battery, which will go in as well. This is a piece of aluminium which was bought, and it was something I did on the little home built CNC to actually take all the holes out and machines that all out. It also does a slight recess on the back, which we needed to get the breakers just to clear.
So that's those 3 plates now mounted. And then we'll give those a quick clean and we'll put on the thermal pad material. So for mounting these plates, what we've done is we've just put a couple of countersinks in the back of this because they'll sit below the feet anyway in the void that's in here, so they won't disturb anything, and then run them through up into the plate and then just knock the heads off them so that they're nice and flat. And then we've got some threaded holes here which we're going to put some threaded bar into, which the modules will then slide down nicely onto, and it will retain it in just the same way as it did in the car pack.
The awkward one.
Yeah, so now we're just applying the recovered thermal pads. As you can see, this material is really, really difficult to work with. It's very soft. It's a bit like putty plasticine. Now this is actually quite thick, the stuff they use in MG. You can get this right down to just a few microns in thickness. I mean, it's not strictly necessary for what we're doing because we're not charging or discharging these at rapid rates in this application that you would find in the car. Okay, so in we go with the first module.
A few moments later.
With the bolt holes, because I say this is the awkward one that you've got to get in first. Yeah, I think in the future I'd use 6mm, not 8mm.
And you can see there how we've modified one of the tabs, but we're going to show you that again a little bit later. So as you can see, we've just got a little bit of threaded bar, which is like that there, and that threads down into the lower plate that we fitted earlier. Right, so that's the first module in and secured. You can see there, just a little spring washer, a couple of nuts, and then it's screwed in, threaded into the base. Now, with the back ones, unlike the front one, we're going to double stack those. So we're using a much longer threaded bar, just a little drop of thread lock, and then we're going to wind those into the base, and then they'll have a plate in between as well as an intermediary plate. And just using the double nut method just to wind the stud in. So just pop the cover back over that module while we were doing the studs, just to be a bit extra safe. You see the studs are now all in, extra long, do the double stack of battery, and then the thermal pads go in.
And then if we just pop this cover off while we can, then it's easy. Here. What's in here that we might need to get shut off. Come on, Luke. There we go. So they come off relatively easy. Right, so
Need to get the slave BMS out.
well, it's on this one. It's an interconnecting one because it's a grey cover. On the black one, there's a full board.
Yeah.
Which we have got one to do, so we'll see that. So what we're going to do now. In fact, tell you what, let's just put them connections off. I hate these connections here.
You're a heathen doing it, aren't you?
I know, I hate these bloody connections. My problem is I can't see half of them. What I want to do is get that board out. Well, we'll just get it out here and it's easy. We'll take these bits out.
So these are all the factory sensor wires for the factory MG BMS. So it's picking up current measurement, temperature measurement.
But they're very nicely bonded onto the aluminium buzz bars, even with temperature sensors as well.
Yeah.
So there's 1, 2, 3 temperature sensors on this pack. 1, 2, 3 sensors, which we don't use.
Yeah.
But we have got some sensors to put in there, but they'll just sit on the packs. Right, so theoretically, it's just a case of lowering it down.
Go on then.
Oh, I've got to do it. I did say theoretically.
Now this is where you have to do a little bit of jiggling around, because you have to line up the studs and then make sure you don't drop it and put your fingers underneath. Right, you hold the pack weight, go up a bit,
Right.
up a bit. Right, you should be on there. This is the delicate part of the build. There she goes. Little bit of CPR.
We have landed. Okay, what's a good start? Next.
Yeah, as you can see, sometimes where the studs go in, you know, they're not perfectly straight, because there's not a lot of clearance with the 8mm studs and the holes of the module. It can get a little cosy, but they do go.
Now, this battery, you put the other way round. On this battery, that's going to be our negative post coming to here. But on this battery, we're going to be working the other way round. That's going to be the positive, and that positive will be going to the front terminal, and we'll be connecting our positive on the battery here
Across to the centre one that we're going to cut.
Cut, yeah.
So it's starting to take shape now. It's first 3 packs, 2 more to go.
Something we prepared earlier.
Some little spacer collars. That are just cut from some aluminium tube. And that will give us our standoff deck for the next level.
Okay, but first we have to connect the BMS wiring
And
to
put the
all of
caps
this,
back on.
and then get the covers back on, and then we can do the next deck.
Right, so we mentioned earlier that we weren't going to use the factory MG BMS, so we've actually bought some BMSs from a Chinese company called JK. That's the part number there, and these are 16 channel, 8 to 16 channel BMSs, aren't they?
Yeah, 200 amp. That's actually BMS module. I'll put that on here, it's easier to see. So our battery connections, which we need to make some to pair them up, and out to our terminal. And then there you go, there are BMS sense cables to every cell, and communications and display ports. Other things in the box, that's what we were looking for well before. That's all the cables that we've got to wire into the battery cells. So temperature sensors, and then these cables we've got to connect in. Switch and data cable for the screen on it, and a few comms cables, and the little communication board to go onto the front panel, which those are all things we'll get to later. These are the screens. We have a slight issue now with these screens, because China is China. nice little touch screen, same as we've seen over there.
And if we come this way, we can actually see one
There we go.
in use. There's our buttons for controlling, and there's one
Yeah,
that's just operating away.
and it will give us, so we can look at all our cell voltages and any alarms. Just a nice simple touch screen. It's information only. You can't switch anything on or off. That all has to be done by the phone on an app.
Yeah.
But for any information that you walk by, you can just press the button, see what the voltages are, and you can see straight away what it's doing.
And the button functionality is giving you what?
Sorry,
The button.
this one.
Yeah.
This basically is the on-off button. And close down.
Another little fabricated piece. What's this bit then, Bill?
Well, this is the plate we're going to mount the BMSs onto. And I think I did mention earlier that I had played with a Ceplus BMS. So the plate is actually drilled with a set of holes that I can either put the JK BMS or I can put a Ceplus 200 amp BMS on it. This plate is now going to sit here. It picks up the existing holes, and then our BMS, two of them, can mount basically like such, one above the other.
Okay, so that is our BMS boards mounted. Is it onto that front plate that we showed you? So front plate now in, and then the BMS boards mounted in front of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting in the measurement wires for the BMS onto each of the cells. Now you'll see all of our cell connections here, which you can just make out are all labelled. The reason we've put that, we're just getting the lengths right and doing all the routing of the wiring, but we don't want to plug that in just yet because obviously the cells are all live and we don't want to put live voltage into the BMS just yet, because we want to check it all first and make sure that all the voltages and polarities are correct so that we don't burn anything out in the BMS. So we've just taped it in place. The connector's not actually pushed in, it's just sat over the top of it. So it's in the right location, which means we can then do all our routing and the wires will fit nicely.
Unusual for me, I remembered the heat shrink.
There's nothing wrong with soldering, going the right way in the right application. Steinel heat gun, if you're doing this kind of work and you haven't got yourself a decent heat gun, go and spend the money. It's about 120, 130 quid, this one. This is a 2320, has a digital thermostat controlled display on the back. Super consistent, super reliable. They go up to 650 degrees, this model. It's more than enough, and just spend the money. Get a decent nozzle as well. That one's actually a little bit bigger than we would normally
You got
use.
shares in that company?
No, I just have lots of them.
Right, so that's black. So the first cell, I want the green, which
So
is
I've
going to be
seen
that
plenty
one.
of people do heat shrink with a lighter and a naked flame.
Okay, bring it up again.
I mean, I wasn't talking about you, Bill, but you know, if the shoe fits.
Hey, listen, mate, when you're in the middle of the ocean and you want got someone to fill the hole in the bottom of the hull, you'll use anything you've got. And with that, I rest my case, my lord. I was not assaulting this battleship. So, black is ground. Cell 1 is the green, so we're picking up the existing green. And it's quite important that you get all these cables going to the right place.
Yeah, BMS tends to get a little unhappy.
How did that get under there? And of course, the other thing is, while I'm doing this, these connections are all live.
Yeah, and some of them will have cell voltage on them. So suitable precaution. It doesn't need to be crazy. We're not talking big dangerous voltages right now. But yeah. An appropriate level of common sense is required as always. Okay, so now we've done the first 2 cells, or first 3 cells in fact here. We've now about to move on to the next one, but that means transitioning from these 2 cells here, because we're going to put a cut in this one to separate it out, and then we're going to jump down to this pack and pick up the next battery cell here, which means the next set of wire from here needs to go this way. Now, what Bill's doing now is cutting off the existing, or the factory connector. And what's important to note there is, of course, that these are all attached to the live cells. So don't just get your cutter and cut through the lot of wires in one go, because you will get an unexpected, unpleasant result. You need to make sure that you cut these wires one by one so that you're not bridging across any of them with your snips.
Else it will go flash.
Yeah.
And may even melt.
And that's not what we're after. So again, just a bit of common sense, just thinking about how we go about the stuff. Now we're time to pick up the next wire.
Right.
So what we've done now is put in B0 to B8. So that's the first 8 cells of monitoring wires for the BMS. So we've just got 3 of our 4 connectors in there, just taped in place like we talked about earlier, wiring around. So that's all wired now into this pack. The cap has been put back on, and then we've put our intermediary plate on now, which is the supporting aluminium plate, ready for the next cell to go on top. So all of that is located. It's on our spacers in there, so it's not sitting on the battery itself, it's sitting securely onto those, taking the weight, and then we can put another pad on, and then we can put the next cell on.
And also get this one on here.
So before we do that and put the next module on, we actually need to put the main voltage cables on, otherwise we won't get access to them. We've already taken the cap, the protective cap off this side, you can see there, ready for us to put nylon on and put those down and run them up, and the same that end as well. So it's all just about getting it in the right order, because there's not a lot of space to work with in here. It's all pretty compact. So now what we've done is we've put the main connections on just because of ease, so that we can get to them. Just covered the ends for now. It's not particularly dangerous, but just belt and braces. Caps are back on the end of the batteries, same this end, and we've got our support plate, our intermediary plate that we talked about earlier, that's now in, and we've now got another piece of the thermal pad in place. And now we can put the top deck on. Like so. And that's our secondary module stacked neatly on top. We can now put spring washers and nuts on there, bolt those 2 down nice and tightly. They're in place. We'll take the cover off and we'll wire up into the cells on those for the BMS, and then we can complete the lug on this side to join to this end of the battery, and vice versa on that one. And then we can go over onto this side and do this section of battery. And we've still got to do our little cut on this set of cells here to separate them out. And that will do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we'll be back in a week with part 2. See you then. What we've got
Really don't want to be looking at all this.